Welcome to the QuickPro guide for the Olympus EPL7. This guide is meant to be a study tool to be used in connection with and not a replacement of your camera's owner's manual. The EPL7 is a great camera that will capture amazing images as well as HD video. Let's get started. Your EPL7 has many sophisticated buttons and dials, and to take the best pictures with your camera, you'll want to be familiar with the functions of each of them. Let's begin by taking a closer look at many of the camera's features. Let's first take a look at the top of the camera. Here is the on-off button. This is the shutter button, and this is the control dial. The control dial is used to control a variety of camera functions. This is the mode dial. To select a shooting mode, simply rotate the mode dial. This is the stereo microphone, which is used for recording sound in movie mode. This is the hot shoe, which will allow you to attach the external flash to the camera. Note that there is a weatherproof cover protecting the accessory port. This is the speaker, which plays sound in movie playback. Now let's take a look at this side of the camera. These are the connector covers, which will allow you to connect the camera to a variety of other devices, including an HD TV or computer, compatible printer, or standard definition TV. Now let's take a look at this side of the camera. Here we'll find the lens release button. To remove a lens, make sure the camera is powered off and press the lens release button while holding the camera with the same hand. And then with the other hand, rotate the lens until it uncouples. To attach a lens, hold the camera with one hand and the lens with the other like this. Align the lens's red attachment mark with the camera's red attachment mark. Then gently rotate the lens until it clicks into place. Avoid changing lenses in windy or dusty conditions. This will help the image sensor stay clean and free of dust. This is the self-timer lamp AF illuminator. On the bottom of the camera, there is the battery and card compartment cover. Your camera can use SD, SDXC, SDHC, and iFi memory cards. When you're inserting a memory card, you'll want to make sure that the manufacturer's logo is facing the front of the camera. Simply insert the card until it clicks into place and close the card slot cover. Before you start taking pictures with a new memory card, it's a good idea to format it. Also keep in mind that your camera will operate faster if you periodically format your card rather than simply deleting images from it to free up space for more picture taking. Make sure that you don't format your card unless you've already copied the images that you want to save to your computer. Formatting your card will erase all the images. To format your memory card, press the menu button. Next, use the arrow pad to select Card Setup from the shooting menu 1. Here, select Format, Yes, and press OK. Now let's take a look at the back of the camera. The most prominent feature is the tilting 3-inch LCD touchscreen monitor. Note that the monitor can tilt in specific directions, and forcing the monitor in a way other than intended will cause damage. This sophisticated monitor can be controlled using the camera's buttons and dials, and many of the functions can also be controlled using the touch screen. In this guide, we'll discuss using the controls primarily with the buttons and dials. When this monitor is rotated to the down position, the camera will be automatically set to use the self-portrait mode. This monitor serves several purposes. First, it provides a real-time live view of the scene. Second, it displays images that have been taken. When the playback button is pressed, you can use the camera's arrow pad to scroll through the images on the memory card. You can also simply swipe the touch screen to scroll through the images. Third, this monitor provides access to the camera's live control. To access live control when you're shooting, simply press the OK button. You can use the arrow pad or control dial to scroll to different options. Finally, when the menu button is pressed, the LCD monitor displays the camera's menu system, where you can change many important settings in the camera. This is the Image Index function button. In the camera's playback mode, you can press this button once to view an image index and a second time to view a calendar display. In the shooting modes, you can press this button to access the camera's live guide shooting controls. This is the magnify button. In the playback mode, you can press this button once or multiple times to zoom in on an image to check for good focus. Then you can use the arrow pad to scroll to an area of the frame that you'd like to view. This button has two functions. First, it is the movie recording button. In any of the camera's shooting modes, you can press this button to begin recording and press it again to end recording. In the playback mode, this button is the selection button, which will allow you to select images to be shared, erased, or protected. This is the menu button, which provides access to the camera's menu system. This is the info button. In the shooting modes and in the playback mode, pressing this button will display important information about the scene or the image. Each time the button is pressed, a different set of information will be displayed. As discussed, this is the arrow pad, which has several functions. It is used for navigating the menu system, scrolling through images in playback, selecting an AF point, and accessing settings in live control. The top, bottom, and sides of the arrow pad also have specific functions. The top of the arrow pad is the exposure compensation button, which will allow you to adjust the overall brightness of the image. The bottom button is the sequential shooting self-timer button, which will allow you to choose the method for capturing images when the shutter button is pressed. The left side of the arrow pad is the AF target button, which will simply allow you to choose the autofocus target. The right side of the arrow pad is the flash button, which provides access to the flash modes. This is the OK button, which is used to access the live control, as well as make selections in the menu system. And these are the erase and playback buttons, which will allow you to erase and view images and movies on the memory card. Your Olympus EPL7 can record image files in two different file types, RAW and JPEG. Both file types have benefits and drawbacks to consider. Let's talk a little about these two image file types. There are several important things to know about RAW files. First, they're not actually image files. They're actually the raw data saved to the memory card directly from the image sensor. Next, RAW files are uncompressed, meaning that the file sizes are considerably larger than those of compressed files. RAW files have a much broader range of tones. Shadow and highlight areas have more detail than JPEG files. Also, you can make extensive edits to a RAW file without losing data or image quality. And finally, RAW files appear flatter, with less color and contrast, and must be processed on the computer before they're printed. JPEG files, however, are very different from RAW files. JPEG files are a standard image file format that can be read by any image software. They are compressed, which means that not all of the image data is actually saved. Because they're compressed, JPEGs are much smaller in file size. JPEGs have a more narrow range of shadows and highlights and will lose some image data each time they're edited. Finally, JPEG files are processed by your camera and are able to be printed directly from the memory card. Because JPEG images require less time when editing on the computer, I use a high-quality JPEG setting for everyday picture taking and snapshots. If I know ahead of time that I'm going to be extensively editing my images, I'll use the RAW plus JPEG format. With its high-resolution image sensor, your camera is capable of recording professional quality images. Let's take a look at how to choose the image quality settings on the EPL7. First, we'll press the menu button and select the Shooting 1 menu. Here, we'll select the image quality icon. The first menu item in the image quality settings is Still Picture. Press the right arrow button to view the still picture image quality options. The first option is RAW. The next four options are the JPEG settings. The image size, or how many megapixels the camera will use to record the image, is indicated by the first letter, and the compression rate is indicated by the second letter. First, there is a large, fine JPEG. When this setting is selected, the camera will record JPEG images at the camera's highest resolution with very little compression. The large, normal setting records images at high resolution with moderate compression. The large JPEG settings are great for making high-quality prints of your images. The middle normal setting records JPEGs at a medium size resolution with moderate compression, and the small normal setting records images at low resolution with moderate compression. The small JPEG setting is good to use if you know that you'll only be using the images for posting online or email. The last four options are the RAW plus JPEG options. When any of these options are selected, the camera will record one RAW file as well as one JPEG file each time a picture is taken. First, there is the large fine JPEG plus RAW. Next, there is the large normal JPEG plus RAW, the medium normal JPEG plus RAW, and lastly, the small normal JPEG plus RAW. The EPL7 has a variety of shooting modes that will allow you to capture images in any shooting scenario. Let's discuss the camera's basic shooting modes now. To select a shooting mode, simply rotate the mode dial. The first shooting mode is iAuto. When this mode is selected, the camera will do all the work for you. All you need to do is point and shoot. The incredibly intuitive iAuto mode will quickly assess a scene and automatically switch to an appropriate scene mode when it recognizes a specific type of shooting scenario. Another great feature of the iAuto mode is that you have access to the live guide, which will allow you to fine-tune settings like color, brightness, background blur, and motion. To access the live guide within the iAuto mode, simply press the OK button. Here, choose an option that you'd like to make adjustments to, and press OK, and rotate the control dial, or use the arrow pad to make your desired changes. Then, press OK to confirm the changes. The next shooting mode is Art. With this mode, you'll be able to capture images with a variety of artistic and creative effects. To access the art filters within this mode, simply press the OK button. There are 15 different art filters in this mode, and within each filter there are different effects. To access the different effects for each mode, simply press the right side of the arrow pad. The options shown on this screen will vary based on the art filter. The first art filter is Pop Art, which will create a vivid look with emphasized colors. Next, there is Soft Focus, which will give your photo the look of soft lighting. Next, there is Pale and Light Color, which will give your image an aged, faded look. Next, there is Light Tone, which will lighten the overall image. Next, there is Grainy Film, which will mimic the look of old film with high contrast black and white tones. Next, there is Pinhole, which will give the image shaded corners and pronounced colors. Next, there is Diorama, which will emphasize the subject and blur the other areas of the image. Next, there is Cross Process, which will give the image accentuated colors and high contrast. Next, there is Gentle Sepia, which will give the image a soft brown tone. Next, there is Dramatic Tone, which will emphasize subjects in the image by darkening the shadows and edges of the subject. Next, there is Key Line, which will give the image a posterized artistic effect. Next, there is Watercolor, which will give the image the look of a watercolor painting with brightened colors and edges. Next, there is Vintage, which will capture images with an aged, nostalgic look. Next, there is Partial Color. In this mode, you can choose the color that you would like visible, and the rest of the image will be black and white. To choose the color, simply rotate the control dial. The final art filter is Art Bracket. With this option, the camera will automatically create copies for each selected art filter each time a picture is taken. To choose the filters that you'd like included, press the right side of the arrow pad. Here you can use the arrow pad or control dial and the OK button to select or deselect the filter options. The next shooting mode is Scene. With the EPL7's wide range of scene modes, you can easily capture great images regardless of your shooting scenario. To access the scene modes from the shooting mode, simply press the OK button. The first scene mode is Portrait. This is a great mode to choose for taking photos of people because it blurs the background and gives pleasant skin tones. The next mode, E-Portrait, will record two images. The first one will be the standard portrait, and the second one will be a portrait with skin smoothing applied. Next, there is Landscape mode, which will vividly reproduce blues and greens in your photos. The Landscape plus Portrait mode is great for taking pictures of people with a vivid landscape in the background. Next, there is the Sport mode, which will allow you to capture fast-moving action. The next mode is Handheld Starlight. With this mode, the camera will rapidly capture a series of images and then combine them to create a final image with reduced noise and blur. Be sure to hold the camera steady as it captures the multiple shots. The Night Scene mode is great for shooting scenes at night. In this mode, you'll want to be sure to stabilize the camera to avoid blur. The Night Portrait mode should be used in conjunction with the supplied flash. In Night Portrait mode, you can capture a picture of a subject in front of scenery. The flash will fire to light the subject, and the shutter will slow to properly expose the scenery. Use the Children mode to capture great candid shots of children at play. The High Key mode will enhance the bright areas of a photo. The Low Key mode will enhance the shadow areas of a photo. The DIS mode indicates Digital Image Stabilization. This mode helps to reduce blur that you might get while shooting a moving subject or when the camera moves while taking pictures. Macro mode is great to take pictures of subjects that are physically close to the lens of the camera. The EPL7 also has a Nature macro mode, which is great for capturing close-up images outdoors. The Candle mode is used for taking pictures under candlelight. Use the Sunset mode to vividly capture the reds and yellows of a sunrise or sunset. The Documents mode allows you to take pictures of documents that have good contrast between the letters on a page and the background. The Panorama mode lets you take a series of pictures that you can combine on your computer to make a single panoramic image. The Fireworks mode uses a slow shutter speed to help you capture fireworks at night. The Beach and Snow mode helps you capture great photos in bright settings like snow and sand. There are also 3 different scene modes that will mimic the effect of different lenses. There is the fisheye effect, the wide angle effect, and macro. The next mode is 3D photo, which will capture images in 3D for viewing on a compatible 3D television. The last scene mode is panning, which will allow you to move the camera to follow moving subjects. When this mode is used, you will have the ability to capture images that have the subject in clear focus while the background is blurred. The next mode on the EPL7 is Photo Story. With this mode, you'll be able to capture multiple images and save them in one of the preset frame templates. With any of the modes in Photo Story, you can press the right side of the arrow pad to access the additional options. You can choose the number of images you'd like on the sheet, as well as the style and order of the images on the sheet. To capture images using Photo Story, simply select the Photo Story mode that you'd like to use and make any desired adjustments to the additional settings and effects. Then press the OK button to begin shooting. Frame the first image in the active frame and take the picture. Repeat the process for the remaining frames. If you'd like to reshoot one of the images, simply press the Erase button and the captured image will be removed so you can take the picture again. When you've captured all of the images for the sheet, press OK to save the final photo story sheet to the memory card. If you'd like to access the photo story settings while you're shooting, simply tap the photo story icon at the bottom corner of the screen. The photo story mode will allow you to save the works in progress and continue shooting at a later time. To do this, choose any of the photo story modes and capture the initial images. Then press the menu button and select Finish Later. The camera will save the unfinished sheet to the memory card. To access all of the photo story works in progress, tap the photo story icon at the bottom of the screen and scroll to Works in Progress. Press the OK button to view the images. Use the arrow pad to select the sheet that you'd like to complete and press OK. The camera will open the saved file so you can capture the remaining images. Press OK to save the completed sheet. One of the most important concepts in photography is exposure, or the amount of light that falls on the camera's image sensor or film. A properly exposed photo will have good detail in the shadow, midtone, and highlight areas. Photos that are too bright are overexposed, and photos that are too dark are underexposed. The camera uses metering modes to measure light to determine proper exposure. The EPL7 has 5 different metering modes. Note that the metering modes are only available in the camera's advanced shooting modes. To select a metering mode, press the OK button and use the arrow pad to select the metering mode option. Here you can use the sides of the arrow pad to make your selection. The first metering mode is called Digital ESP Metering. This is a great general use metering mode that can be used in most shooting scenarios. When this mode is selected, the camera will divide the scene into zones. Then the camera measures the shadows and highlights in each zone and averages all the zones. Then the camera uses that average to set the exposure automatically to suit the scene. This is a good mode to use for many situations. But sometimes when the scene is very bright or very dark, you want to use a different metering mode. The center weighted average metering mode is weighted at the center and then averaged for the entire scene. Center weighted metering functions much like matrix metering, with zones being evaluated and averaged. But with center weighted metering, the zones that are in the center area of the frame are given the greatest weight. The zones that are outside of the center area of the frame are taken into account as well, but these zones are given much less priority when determining the exposure. Center-weighted metering is a classic mode used for portraits. The next mode is spot metering. Spot metering functions much in the same way as center-weighted metering, but spot metering uses only a very small area of the frame to determine proper exposure. Spot metering is a great mode to use when there's a lot of contrast between the background and the subject, when the background is either very bright or very dark. There are also 2 unique spot metering options: spot metering highlight control and spot metering shadow control. Highlight control will ensure that bright subjects appear bright in high contrast lighting, and shadow control will ensure dark subjects appear dark in high contrast lighting. Now that you know a little about how your camera sees and measures light to create properly exposed photos, let's talk a little about the more advanced shooting modes on the EPL7. Let's first discuss the program mode. In this mode, the camera automatically adjusts shutter speed and aperture for optimal exposure. This may seem similar to the Auto mode, but with the program mode, you will have control over the exposure compensation, ISO setting, focus mode, drive mode, and many other settings. To operate in this mode, rotate the mode dial to P. Taking a picture in this mode is simple. Press the shutter button halfway down to focus, and you'll see a green autofocus indicator appear over the area of the image that will be in focus. Now, press the shutter button the rest of the way down to take the picture. You may find that the shutter speed is too slow for what you're photographing, or that the aperture does not give you the depth of field that you're looking for. You can change the aperture and shutter speed combination by simply rotating the control dial. You can also use the exposure compensation to make adjustments to the overall brightness of the image. Press the exposure compensation button and use the sides of the arrow pad to make your adjustments. Values with a plus sign will make the image brighter, and values with a minus sign will make the image darker. The next advanced shooting mode is Aperture Priority. This mode is useful for times when you want to control the depth of field in an image. Depth of field is the term used to describe the distance between the nearest and farthest objects in a scene that appear acceptably sharp in an image. When only a small area or subject in an image is in focus, it's said to have a shallow depth of field. This effect is achieved by using a small f-stop number. When everything in both the foreground and background is in focus, an image is said to have a long depth of field. For a long depth of field, choose a large f-stop number. When you're shooting in Aperture Priority mode, you'll set the aperture and the camera will automatically select a correct shutter speed for proper exposure. To use the camera in Aperture Priority mode, simply rotate the mode dial to A. You can adjust the aperture setting by rotating the control dial. Now, simply press the shutter button halfway down to focus and the rest of the way down to take the picture. If the image is too bright or too dark, you can use exposure compensation. Note that when exposure compensation is active in Aperture Priority mode, you can use the top and bottom of the arrow pad to select the aperture setting, and you can use the sides of the arrow pad to choose the exposure compensation setting. The next advanced shooting mode is the Shutter Priority mode. This mode is useful for times when you want to control motion in a scene, whether it's freezing action or blurring the motion of the subject. In this mode, you'll set the shutter speed and the camera will automatically select an appropriate aperture value for proper exposure. To use the camera in Shutter Priority mode, simply rotate the mode dial to S. To choose the shutter speed, simply rotate the control dial. Again, simply press the shutter button halfway down to focus and the rest of the way down to take the picture. Similar to the Aperture Priority mode, you can press the exposure compensation button to access the exposure compensation and the shutter speed settings. The last advanced shooting mode is Manual, or M mode. This mode gives you complete control of the camera. In Manual mode, you will set both the shutter speed and aperture to create the exposure. To use the camera in Manual mode, simply rotate the mode dial to M. To select the shutter speed, rotate the control dial. To select the aperture, press the exposure compensation button and rotate the control dial. From here, you can also use the sides of the arrow pad to choose the aperture setting and the top and bottom of the arrow pad to choose the shutter speed. As you make changes to these settings, you'll want to pay attention to the camera's exposure meter. When the indicator is toward the plus side of the scale, the image will be too bright or overexposed. When the indicator is toward the minus side of the scale, the image will be too dark or underexposed. In addition to aperture and shutter speed, the camera's ISO setting will have a significant impact on whether your images are properly exposed. The ISO setting affects the image sensor's sensitivity to light. The higher the number, the less light that is required to properly expose the image sensor. You can either have the camera automatically choose the sensitivity, or you can set it manually. To set the ISO on the EPL7, press the OK button to access the live control and use the arrow pad to select the ISO option. Use the sides of the arrow pad to make your selection. You can choose from 200 to 25,600, as well as an auto setting and a low setting. It's a good idea to set the ISO speed to suit the ambient light setting that you're shooting in. When you increase the ISO speed to a higher number for low light, a fast shutter speed can be used to avoid blurry images. The image sensor on your camera is very powerful. It will allow you to use very high ISO settings and still have great images. Keep in mind, however, that some very high ISO settings will introduce digital noise or grain into your images. You'll want to experiment with the camera's ISO settings to become familiar with their range and control. Here's a guide that will help you have a basic idea of what ISO settings to use in various situations. When you're outdoors in full sun, use ISO 100 to 200. In the shade, on an overcast day, or indoors with lots of window light, use ISO 400. ISOs 800 and higher should be used indoors, for action shots, or in other low light conditions. Now that we've discussed shooting modes and ISO settings, let's take a minute to talk about the camera's drive modes. The drive modes determine how many times the shutter releases when you press the shutter button. To select the drive mode, press the sequential shooting self-timer button and use the sides of the arrow pad to make your selection. The first option is single frame shooting. With this mode selected, one picture will be taken each time the shutter button is pressed. Next, there is the sequential high-speed option. With this mode selected, the camera will take continuous pictures at up to 8 frames per second while the shutter button is pressed down. The sequential low-speed option will continuously take pictures at up to 3.5 frames per second while the shutter button is pressed down. There are also 3 self-timer options. You can choose from 12 seconds, 2 seconds, or custom. With the custom option, you can press the info button to make adjustments to the length of the timer, the number of frames, the interval time, and the autofocus setting for each frame. The EPL7 features full-time live view as well as impressive full HD movie recording. Let's take a few minutes to learn more about the options that are displayed on the camera's LCD. Note that these settings will vary depending on the shooting mode that you have selected. We'll be showing the icons that are shown when the camera is set to program mode. The information display on is the default display. On this screen, you'll see the Wi-Fi connection indicator, the ISO setting, the touchscreen operations icon, the shooting mode, the shutter speed, the aperture setting, the exposure compensation setting and exposure meter, the number of still images remaining, the movie recording time remaining, the movie record mode, the still image record mode, the picture mode, the image stabilizer. To view the histogram display, simply press the info button. At the bottom of the screen, a real-time histogram will be displayed. The histogram will help you have a basic idea of the tone distribution in the image. For most images, you want the histogram data to be over the whole graph or in the center of the graph. To minimize the information that is displayed, press the display button again to see the image-only view. Pressing the info button again will show the level gauge display, where these gauges will indicate whether the camera is level in the side-to-side and forward-backward positions. Your EPL7 is capable of shooting high-quality HD video. You can record movies in any of the camera's shooting modes except photo story by simply pressing the movie record button. When you use the camera's movie shooting mode, you can have the same control over depth of field and overall exposure as you would when you're shooting still images. Also note that when you're using an art filter, the characteristics of that filter will be applied to your movie. It's helpful to understand a little about movie resolution and movie file formats before you start shooting movies. To access the movie recording mode settings, press the menu button and use the arrow pad to select the record mode icon from shooting menu 1. Here, highlight Movie and press the right arrow to view the options. There are 6 different movie recording modes to choose from. The first 2 options are Full HD. With these modes, the camera will record full HD movies at 1920 by 1080. The difference between fine and normal is the level of compression. The fine setting will have less compression, a little better image quality, and slightly larger file sizes than the normal setting. Both of these modes are great for viewing on HD devices. The next 2 options are HD Fine and HD Normal. The HD settings will record movies at 1280 by 720, and again, the difference will be the level of compression. These options are good for times that you would like high-quality video, but it doesn't need to be full HD. The Motion JPEG HD setting will record movies at 1280 by 720 with a lower frame rate and higher compression. The Motion JPEG SD setting will record movies at 640 by 480. Recording a movie with this camera is easy. Simply press the shutter button halfway down to focus, then press the Movie Record button to begin recording. To refocus during movie recording, press the shutter button halfway down. Press the Movie Record button again to end recording. When shooting movies, use an SD Speed Class 6 memory card or higher. If a slower memory card is used, the movie may not be properly recorded. To view a movie that you recorded, press the Playback button. If necessary, scroll to the movie that you would like to play and press the OK button to view the movie Playback Options. Select Movie Play and press OK. Using the camera's movie record mode, you can change a variety of settings like shooting mode, aperture, shutter speed, ISO, white balance, as well as a variety of other settings. Making changes to these settings is easy. First, make sure that the camera is set to movie record mode. Now, press the OK button to access the live control. Here, you can use the arrow pad to make your selections. We'll navigate to the shooting mode and select Manual Shooting. Now we can make adjustments to the shutter speed and aperture in the same way that we did in still image shooting. Rotate the control dial to set the shutter speed and press the exposure compensation button, and then rotate the control dial to select the aperture. If you'd like to create depth of field in your movie files, select either Aperture Priority or Manual Mode and choose a small f-stop number. To record sound in movie mode, the EPL7 has a built-in microphone, which will record sound automatically by default. Take care not to cover the microphone during movie recording. If you'd like to turn off sound during recording, you can do this through the camera's live control. Simply press OK to enter the live control and sound recording setting. Here you can select either on or off. When the camera is set to the movie mode, you'll see 4 icons at the bottom of the screen. These are the camera's movie effects. These effects are activated and deactivated via the touch screen. This icon represents Art Fade, which will allow you to record movies with a selected picture effect. The fade effect will be applied to transitions between scenes. This icon is the Old Film icon. When enabled, this effect will make the movie appear to have damaged and dust-like noise, like old movies. This icon represents Multi-Echo, which will allow you to apply an after image effect. After images will appear behind moving subjects. This icon represents One-Shot Echo, which will allow you to apply an after image for only a short time after the button is pressed. This icon will allow you to use the Movie Teleconverter. With the Movie Teleconverter, you can zoom in on an area of the image without using the zoom lens. The Olympus EPL7 has a large LCD monitor where you can review images, adjust menu settings, and access the information display. There are many options available for previewing images. Let's discuss those options now. For basic playback of your images on the camera's LCD monitor, simply press the playback button. Then you can use the control dial or arrow pad to scroll through the images. If you have a large number of images recorded on the memory card, you may find that it's faster to find the photos that you would like to view if you display multiple photos on the screen at once. To do this, simply press the Function Image Index button. Pressing the Image Index button once will display the image index on the LCD monitor, and pressing the Image Index button again will show the calendar display, where you can view pictures that were taken on a specific date. In both the Image Index and Calendar display, you can simply press the OK button to view the image's full screen. You can also magnify images on the LCD monitor. This is especially useful when you want to check for good focus in detail areas of the photo. Press the Zoom In button once or multiple times to see the desired level of detail in the photo. Use the arrow pad to scroll to the area of the image that you'd like to view. To scroll through other images at the same level of magnification, press the Info button and use the sides of the arrow pad to scroll through the images. To access the arrow pad to scroll top to bottom and side to side in the image, press the Info button again. The EPL7 has a unique quick access menu available in image playback. To view the menu, simply press the OK button. Here you can choose from a variety of options. We'll discuss several of these options now. First, there is JPEG Edit. Let's press the OK button to view those options. Here you can apply a variety of different edits to images right in camera. First, there is the shadow adjustment, where you can brighten a backlit subject. Next, there is Red Eye Fix, where you can fix red eyes in images of people where the flash is used. The Crop option will allow you to crop your image, and the Aspect option will allow you to change the aspect ratio. You can also convert the image to black and white or sepia, adjust the saturation, reduce the image pixel size, and apply an e-portrait effect to make skin look smooth. The next option in the Quick Access menu is Share Order, where you can choose a specific image to be transferred to a smartphone. Use the sides of the arrow pad to scroll to the image that you would like to share, and then press the top or bottom of the arrow pad to select that image to be shared. The next option is Protect, where you can protect images from accidentally being erased. To protect an image, use the arrow pad to scroll to the image that you would like to protect, and then press the top or bottom arrow button to protect the image. To protect additional images, continue scrolling and using the top and bottom of the arrow pad in the same way. When an image is protected, a small green key icon will appear. Press OK to confirm. The next option is the Audio Recording option, where you can add an audio recording to a photo. The next option, Rotate, allows you to rotate an image. To do this, select Rotate and use the top or bottom arrows to rotate the image. Press OK to confirm and resume normal image playback. The next option allows you to create a slideshow of the images and movies on the memory card. The Print Order option will allow you to select which photos you'd like to have printed when the camera is connected to a compatible printer. The final item in this menu is Erase, which will simply allow you to erase images. You can also share, protect, or erase several images at once. To do this, make sure that you are in playback mode and scroll to an image that you would like to select for protection or deletion. Simply press the Movie Record button to select it. A small red check mark will appear at the top right corner of the screen. Continue scrolling through the images and press the Movie Record button to make your selections. Now press the OK button and highlight Share Order Selected, Protect, or Erase Selected, and press OK to confirm. The EPL7 has different playback screens that will each display different information about the image. Pressing the playback button will take you to the default simplified playback, where you can see the date the picture was taken, the time the picture was taken, the aspect ratio, the image record mode, the file number, and the frame number. Pressing the info button again will bring up the overall display. Here you will see the same information that was in the previous display, and in addition to that information you can see the shooting mode, shutter speed, aperture, metering mode, exposure compensation, focal length, white balance compensation, ISO, color space, picture mode, pixel count, and compression rate. Below the image on the left side of the screen you'll see the histograms. There's one for the whole image, as well as histograms for each of the red, green, and blue color channels. The histogram gives a basic idea of the tone distribution of an image. If the histogram is shifted to the left side of the graph, the image will probably be too dark or underexposed. If the histogram is shifted to the right side of the graph, the image will be too bright or overexposed. In most cases, a properly exposed photo will have the data distributed over the whole graph or in the center of the graph. The final playback screen can be shown by pressing the info button again. This view is simply a full screen image. One of the most important principles for taking a great picture is image sharpness. Image sharpness is affected by several things, including the autofocus system, camera shake, depth of field, and digital noise. The Olympus EPL7 has a sophisticated autofocus system with a variety of autofocus modes that will help you get great focus regardless of what type of subject you're photographing. Let's first discuss the focus modes that are available on the EPL7. When you're choosing the focus mode, the main thing that you'll want to think about is whether or not the subject is in motion. When the camera is set to one of the advanced shooting modes, you'll be able to access and make adjustments to the autofocus modes. Press the OK button to access the live control, and scroll to the autofocus mode option. Here you can use the sides of the arrow pad to choose from single AF, continuous AF, manual focus, single AF plus manual focus, and continuous AF tracking. With all of the autofocus modes, you can focus by pressing the shutter button halfway down. When focus is achieved, the AF target which achieved focus will flash in green, and the focus indicator will appear at the top right corner of the LCD monitor. The first focus mode is SAF, or single AF, and is best suited for stationary subjects. Choose this mode when you're photographing objects or when you're doing portrait work with an older child or adult. The CAF, or continuous AF mode, is best for shooting moving subjects, and it's for use when the focusing distance keeps changing. Use this mode when you're photographing sporting events, small children, or animals. While you hold down the shutter button halfway, the subject will be continuously focused. In the manual focus mode, you can focus manually using the focus ring on the lens. With the single AF plus manual focus mode, you can press the shutter button halfway down to focus and then use the focus ring to fine-tune manually. This is good for times when you're photographing small subjects with very great detail. The last focus mode is continuous AF plus tracking. With this mode, the camera will track and maintain focus on a moving subject while the shutter button is held down. The initial point of focus will be the AF target that is currently selected. This focus mode is great for fast action scenarios. In addition to the focus modes, you'll want to be familiar with your camera's Autofocus Target options. To access the AF target options, press the left arrow button. By default, the camera is set to use all targets, meaning that the camera will automatically select the focus target from the full set of targets. You can switch to single target by simply pressing the top, bottom, or sides of the arrow pad, or by rotating the control dial. You can also choose a group target option, where the camera will automatically choose an AF target from one of the targets in a selected group. To activate the Group Target AF setting, press the left arrow button to bring up the AF target options. Then press the Info button to access the AF target settings. Press the up arrow button and select the Group AF option and press OK. Now you can use the control dial, or the top, bottom, and sides of the arrow pad to choose which group target you'd like. The other AF target setting is Small Target. Again, press the left arrow button to access the AF target options, and then press the Info button. Pressing the up arrow button once will enable the Small Target mode. This mode functions just like the single target mode, but in this mode the AF targets are much smaller, making it easier to pinpoint focus exactly where you'd like it. To select an AF target, press the left arrow button and use the control dial and arrow pad to make your selection. With the EPL7, you can also use the touch screen for autofocus. You can tap this icon to cycle through the different touch focus methods. When this icon is active, you'll need to tap the area of the screen you'd like in focus, and the camera will immediately focus and take the picture without you pressing the shutter button. When this icon is active, the touchscreen operations will be disabled. When this icon is active, you can use the touchscreen to zoom in on a small area of the frame to focus in on the detail area. To use this option, make sure the focus mode is set to any focus mode except AF tracking. Then tap the screen to display an AF target and use the slider on the right side of the screen to choose the size of the AF target. Simply tap the magnify icon at the bottom of the screen and the view will be zoomed to the target position. You can swipe top to bottom and side to side to fine-tune the area that you'd like in focus. Then simply press the shutter button halfway to focus and the rest of the way to take the picture. The camera will capture the image as it was framed before the focus zoom was activated. When the camera is set to the AF tracking focus mode, and this icon is active for the touch focus operation, you can tap the screen to focus on the moving subject, and the camera will continue to track the subject as it moves through the frame. Simply press the shutter button completely to capture the image. Another useful feature for getting great focus with the EPL7 is face priority. With this option, you can set the camera to automatically find and focus on faces in the scene. To access the options for face priority, press the OK button to enter live control and select the face priority option. The first and default option is face priority on, which will simply focus on faces in the scene. Next, there is face and eye priority on, which will focus on the eye that is closest to the camera. The next two options are face and eye priority right and left eye, which will focus on the right or left eye of the subject respectively. Sometimes a photo may have poor focus, but it's not related to the camera's focus mode or focus area mode. Camera shake happens when the camera moves while the shutter is open. This exposes the image sensor while the camera is moving and results in a blurry image. Always try to steady the camera. Holding it with two hands and pressing the viewfinder gently against your face will help. You can also lean against something or use a tripod, a monopod, or even a beanbag to steady the camera. You can also reduce the effect of camera shake by selecting a fast shutter speed. This reduces the amount of time the image sensor is exposed to shaky conditions. A helpful rule of thumb is to set your shutter speed to 1 over the focal length. Confusing? Let me explain. If the focal length on your lens is 300 millimeters, for example, you should set your shutter speed to at least 1/300th of a second. If the focal length is 30 millimeters, you might get by using a shutter speed as low as 1/30th of a second. Let's take a look at the EPL7's sophisticated menu system. Depending on the settings that are selected, the menu system items may vary. We'll be showing the menu options that are available in the camera's default settings. Many of these settings are discussed in greater detail in other chapters of this guide. To access the menu system, simply press the menu button. By default, there are 4 different menus, including Shooting Menu 1, Shooting Menu 2, Playback, and Setup. Note that when you're navigating the menu system, you can press the Info button to turn off the pop-up info boxes. Let's begin by taking a look at the items in the Shooting Menu 1. The first item is Card Setup. This is where you can format the memory card or simply erase all the images from the memory card. The Reset My Set option will allow you to reset the camera to factory default, as well as save the current camera settings for future picture taking. You can save up to 4 different combinations of settings. The next menu item, Picture Mode, will allow you to select a mode with preset contrast, sharpness, saturation, gradation, and other parameters. The next menu item, Record Mode, will allow you to select both the still picture resolution and file type, as well as the movie resolution and file type. The Image Aspect menu item is where you can choose the aspect ratio for your photos. You can choose from 4:3, 16:9, 3:2, 1:1, and 3:4. If you're planning on making 4:6 prints of your photos, you want to select the 3:2 option. The last menu item in the Shooting Menu 1 is Digital Teleconverter, which will allow you to digitally zoom in on subjects beyond the zooming capability of the lens. The next menu is Shooting Menu 2, which begins with Self-Timer Sequential Shooting. With this menu item, you can simply choose the Self-Timer Sequential Shooting mode. The next menu item, Image Stabilizer, allows you to choose the Image Stabilizer options for still pictures and movie. For still picture, you can choose from Auto, Off, SIS-1, which will stabilize the camera in all directions, SIS-2, which is good to use when you're holding the camera horizontally and panning horizontally, and SIS-3, which is good for when you're holding the camera vertically and panning horizontally. The bracketing menu item allows you to set up the bracketing parameters for exposure, white balance, flash, ISO, and art filters. The next menu item is HDR, with a variety of options to help you create stunning HDR images. The first two HDR options, HDR1 and HDR2, will allow you to create an HDR photo automatically in camera. With these options, the camera will take 4 photos at very high speed and automatically combine them to make the final HDR image. Be sure to hold the camera steady while all 4 images are taken. The other HDR options will take 3, 5, or 7 images at high speed when the shutter button is pressed. All of the images will have variations in exposure, which will make it easy for you to combine them to create an HDR image on the computer. With the Multiple Exposure menu item, you can set up the camera to take multiple exposure images. Next, there is time-lapse. With the time-lapse feature, you can set the camera to take pictures at a preset time interval, and then you can use those images to create a single time-lapse movie. The last option is RC mode, which will allow you to use compatible external flash units that offer a remote control mode for wireless flash photography. The playback menu begins with the slideshow option, where you can set up the camera to play a slideshow of the images and movies on the memory card. Next, there is Image Rotate. When enabled, Image Rotate will automatically rotate and display images that are taken in the portrait orientation. The Edit menu item allows you to make a variety of adjustments to images directly in camera. The Print Order Settings option allows you to choose which images to print when the camera is connected directly to a compatible printer, and the Reset Protect menu item will allow you to unprotect all protected images on the memory card. The final menu item in the playback menu is Connection to Smartphone, which will allow you to use a wirelessly enabled smartphone or tablet with the Olympus Image Share app installed to remotely control the camera, share photos between the camera and the smartphone, edit images, and add geotags. The Setup menu begins with the Date-Time setting. Here you can use the top and bottom arrows to select the year, press the right arrow button and select the month, then do the same for the day, the hour, and the minute. Finally, you can choose the format you'd like the date to be displayed in. Press OK to confirm the settings. The Language menu item allows you to select the language for menus and displays. The Monitor Brightness Adjustment menu allows you to change the brightness and color temperature of the LCD monitor. The Record View option is where you can choose how long to have the images displayed on the LCD monitor immediately after they're taken. Under Wi-Fi settings, there are 4 options for setting up your camera for use with the Wi-Fi feature. First, there is Wi-Fi Connect settings. Here you can choose Private, One Time, Select, or Off. Private is a good option to choose if you will only be connecting your camera to your smartphone or tablet. One Time is a good option to choose if you're connecting the camera to someone else's smartphone. Select is a good option to use if you would like to choose the Wi-Fi connection each time it is used. Next, there is Private Password, which will allow you to change the Wi-Fi connection password. Next, there is Reset Share Order, which will allow you to cancel image sharing. Last, there is Reset Wi-Fi Settings, which will allow you to reset the Wi-Fi settings to factory default. The Menu Display option allows you to choose whether or not to display the custom menus or the accessory port menu. The Firmware menu item displays the version of firmware that is installed. Your EPL7 has many great features to help you capture images and movies with great tone, color, and creativity. Let's talk about some of these features now. First, let's discuss the camera's tone control setting. In certain shooting scenarios, you may find that the highlights in your image are too bright or that the shadow areas are too dark, even when the overall photo has good exposure. With the EPL7's tone control, you can adjust the brightness of the shadow and highlight areas without changing the overall exposure settings. To access the tone control feature, make sure that the camera is set to one of the Art Filter shooting modes or one of the Advanced shooting modes. We'll select Aperture Priority. Press the Exposure Compensation button, the top arrow button to activate the exposure compensation. Now, press the Info button to activate the tone control dialog. Here, you can press the left arrow button to darken the shadows or the right arrow button to lighten the shadows. To adjust the highlight areas of the image, press the Info button again. Just as with the shadow adjustment, you can use the left arrow to darken the highlights and the right arrow button to brighten the highlights. White balance is determined by the color temperature of light sources, which is measured in degrees Kelvin. The higher color temperatures, measured in the area of 5600 Kelvin to 7500 Kelvin, represent situations like a sunlit or cloudy day. These shooting situations have a greater amount of blue tones and a lesser amount of red tones. Lower color temperature situations are measured in the area of 3500 Kelvin down to 1900 Kelvin, and are found in lighting situations like standard lighting from a tungsten light bulb or candle light. These types of shooting situations are found on the lower end of the spectrum and produce greater amounts of red tones and lesser amounts of blue tones. To access the white balance settings, first make sure that the camera is set to one of the advanced shooting modes and press the OK button to display the live control. Here, scroll to the white balance setting and use the left and right arrow buttons to make your selection. Press the OK button to confirm the selection and resume normal picture taking. The first white balance setting is Auto White Balance. With this setting, your camera will automatically assess the color of the light in a scene and make the necessary adjustments automatically. The next white balance setting is Sunny. Sunny is a great setting for taking pictures in the sunlight. This setting is marked with a sun icon. Use the shadow setting when you're taking pictures in the shade. It reduces the bluish tones in a picture. This setting is marked by an icon of a house with shade. Use the cloudy setting when you're taking pictures on days that are overcast. This is marked with a cloud icon. The incandescent setting is used when taking pictures under common light bulbs. It reduces the reddish tones in a picture. This setting is marked with a light bulb icon. The fluorescent light setting can be used when you're shooting under standard fluorescent lighting. The underwater setting is great for underwater photography when an optional underwater housing is used. The next setting is the flash setting. Use this setting when you're using the attachable flash or an external flash unit. The next four icons are the one-touch white balance options. Select one of these options when you want to use your own custom white balance settings specific to the lighting conditions you're shooting in. This is done by taking a picture of a white card or object and then selecting the image for the camera's electronics to reference. Setting a one-touch white balance on the EPL7 is easy. Simply highlight one of the one-touch white balance settings and press the Info button. Now fill the frame with the white object and press the shutter button completely. Select Yes and press OK. Now, images taken with the current lighting will have the specific one-touch white balance setting applied. The last white balance setting is Custom White Balance. With this setting, you can choose the specific color temperature of the light that you're shooting under. To change the color temperature, press the Info button and use the arrow pad or control dial to make your selection. Picture modes are an intuitive way for you to tell the camera what levels of contrast, sharpness, and other parameters that you'd like for your specific shooting scenario. The camera has 6 different preset picture modes, as well as 1 custom picture mode. All of the picture modes are adjustable and customizable. To access the picture modes, press the OK button to display the live control and navigate to the picture mode option. Here you can use the left and right arrow buttons to make your selection. First, there is the Eye Enhance picture mode. This is a great general use picture mode. The camera will automatically adjust color tone to fit the scene that you're photographing with impressive results. Images taken with this picture mode will appear sharp, vivid, and crisp. The Vivid picture mode is great for images with primary colors that you would like emphasized. The Natural picture mode will capture images with natural colors, sharpness, and saturation. The Muted picture mode produces flat tones. This is a good mode to choose if you're planning on extensively editing your photos on your computer. The Portrait picture mode is great for photographing people and faces. It offers beautiful skin tones. The Monotone picture mode will capture images with smooth black and white gradation. Images taken in this setting cannot be converted to color later. With the Custom Picture mode, you can select one of the 6 preset modes and customize it to your liking. Also note that each of the 6 preset modes are customizable in the same way. Let's create and register a custom picture mode now. Press the menu button to enter the first shooting menu and select Picture Mode. Here, highlight Custom and press the right arrow button to see the options. On this screen, you can highlight any of the parameters and press the right arrow button to make changes to that parameter. You can select the base picture mode, adjust the contrast, sharpness, saturation, and gradation. When you're finished making adjustments, simply press OK to save the changes. Within the picture mode setting, you're also able to access the camera's art filters. Simply press the OK button to bring up the live control and select the picture mode setting. Use the sides of the arrow pad to scroll to the art filter options. The first option is ePortrait, which will make images of people have smooth skin textures. Each of the other art filters are the same as the art filters that are available when the mode dial is set to art. Each of these options are discussed in detail in Chapter 3. Your EPL7 has a powerful attachable flash that can provide you with extra light in certain shooting scenarios. The effective range of the flash will vary depending on the aperture, shutter speed, and ISO. As a general rule, you want to keep your subject within about 3.5 to 20 feet for the best results. To attach the flash to the camera, first make sure that the camera is turned off. Next, remove the hot shoe cover from the hot shoe. Then, while holding down the unlock button, remove the cover from the flash, like this. Now, simply slide the flash onto the hot shoe until it clicks into place. The flash can be raised or lowered. To remove the flash from the camera, press and hold the unlock button and gently remove the flash from the camera. You want to be sure to replace the hot shoe cover on the camera and the cover on the flash when you're finished. When the flash is raised, it will fire automatically in low light conditions in the camera's easy shooting modes. It will also fire automatically in the advanced shooting modes, depending on the flash mode that is currently selected. To access the flash modes, make sure that the camera is set to one of the advanced shooting modes and press the right side of the arrow pad to view the options. First, there is the Flash Auto mode. In this mode, the flash will fire automatically in low light or backlight conditions. The next flash mode is Red Eye Reduction. This mode is good to use when you're photographing people or pets. In this mode, a tiny pre-flash will fire, which causes the size of the person's pupils to shrink, lessening the effect of red eye in the photo. Next, there is the Fill-In flash mode. In this mode, the flash will fire every time a picture is taken, regardless of the lighting conditions. In Flash Off mode, the flash will not fire, regardless of the lighting conditions. Use this mode at times when flash photography is prohibited or inappropriate. The Red Eye Slow Sync Reduction mode is great for photographing people at night with a reduced appearance of red eyes. The next flash mode is Slow Sync mode. This flash mode is a good mode to use when you're photographing a subject at night and you would like to have the background and the subject properly exposed. In the Slow Sync Second Curtain mode, the flash fires just before the shutter closes, which will create a stream of light behind light sources. The subject will be properly exposed. There are also manual flash settings ranging from full to 1/64th power for times when you would like to control the output of the flash manually. To make adjustments, press the Info button and use the arrow pad or control dial to make adjustments. There may be times when you would like to adjust the flash output if the subject is over or underexposed. To do this, you can use the Flash Intensity control setting. To adjust the flash intensity control, make sure that the camera is set to one of the advanced shooting modes and press the OK button to display the live control. Now, scroll to the Flash Intensity control setting. You can use the sides of the arrow pad to make adjustments. If the indicator is placed toward the minus side of the scale, the flash will output less light and the image will be darker. If the indicator is placed toward the plus side of the scale, the flash will output more light and the image will be brighter. The EPL7 has a built-in Wi-Fi feature that makes it easy to use a smartphone with the Olympus Image Share app to remotely control the camera, share photos between the camera and a smartphone, edit images, and add geotags. To use the Connection to Smartphone feature, select Connection to Smartphone in the Playback menu. The camera will display a QR code to be scanned using the Olympus Image Share app on your smartphone. For iPhones, when you launch the app, the Easy Setup screen will appear and prompt you to scan the QR code. Tap Scan and frame the QR code in the box on the smartphone screen. After the code has been scanned, tap Install. Then, on the Install Profile screen, tap Install again. Your smartphone may prompt you with a warning. Tap Install and Done. Once the phone has joined the network, launch the Olympus Image Share app again. Here, you can use the app to remotely control the camera, import photos from the camera's memory card to the smartphone, edit photos, and add geotags. Note that the Olympus Image Share app is available for iOS devices as well as Android devices. We hope you've enjoyed learning more about your Olympus EPL7. We know that this new information will give you enough confidence and know-how to take your photography skills to new levels. Remember, you can refer back to any section of this guide at any time. Watch for more QuickPro guides on using newly released cameras. Thanks for watching.